Yo, what's going on, y'all?
What up?
Man, we are back. We got a great show lined up for everybody today. Got some friends of the pod that have graciously given their Monday night to us. So Kerry, you want to introduce our guest?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of our guests know Justin from the many times he's come on and given us that good knowledge about what it means to be a Black entrepreneur, be in Black tech, and just ultimately care about your community. Justin, welcome back again. And I got to shout out Tasha, one of our #1 fans that's been on the show, in the comments, hollering, shouting us out, always supporting us from day one. Tasha, welcome live. I see you got the bomb background. You're ready to go.
I'm trying to get it right so y'all can see the bomb background, but don't worry about that. I appreciate y'all having me.
Well, since you brought up the bomb background, tell us a little bit about it.
Well, over a year ago, we thought we were going to jump into the podcast world. But y'all have been the ones that have really took that thing and ran with it. But our family decided to do Agape the Game, which is the love for whatever it is you have a love for, whether it be sports, music, or anything. So this backdrop is all of like sports icons that my kids and my husband and even myself that we really love. So we got that done. This whole studio is for the podcast that hasn't come back in over a year.
It's coming.
But maybe it'll come back.
Yeah, it's on the way. I mean, your husband said the other day it was coming back, so it's coming back.
Yeah, in some kind of form.
Yeah, it is.
I love it.
Yo, so we have news to talk about today. I think it started Thursday night, Justin.
Depending on who you ask, I feel like that's where it started to appear on Twitter. So it started to leak into the Twitter sphere on Thursday. Yeah. Last Thursday.
Okay. So for those who don't know, and y'all please jump in, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we've ever had this many people to talk on the show at one time. But when we knew we wanted to talk about what jumped off, and I was like, all right, well, Tasha spent the majority of her career in banking. Justin is and has been an entrepreneur venture capitalist, tech. This is his lane. I was like, yo, we got to have him on the show. So they have graciously said yes, and here we are. So y'all bear with us if we talk on each other, but we're gonna make it through the show and hopefully get through something that's informative.
We're from the South. We got manners.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of.
until the drunk Mondays start flowing, then who knows?
In true drunk Mondays fashion, we have to start every episode off. What's everybody drinking? It's okay if you're not drinking alcohol. I think for year one, we were like, yo, you got to drink. This year, I think we just like, yo.
This year, we're kind of like, do it, don't do it. Just bring great conversation, and we'll consider that your nourishment for the day. So is anyone drinking? Who's drinking? Who's drinking today? Yes.
Nice.
I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Water good. That's great. I got water somewhere around here too.
Somewhere around.
I definitely have it all.
Oh, yeah.
I got a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So.
Gotta stay hydrated no matter what.
Aaron, you got your water in a smoothie cup. Are you making a smoothie afterwards?
No, I'm just drinking hella water.
Oh.
I just need lots of water. So, well, I'm drinking IW Harper. It's a brand. I actually got this from. It was a gift. I spoke at a conference called Yesterday's Tomorrow earlier this year, and they you can see it, but they like.
Oh, that's what's up.
Yes, and they gave it.
Yeah.
So they actually tattooed it, and it's not. It's actually good. Like it's actually pretty good.
Hey, that's
pretty good reserve. So that's what I'm sipping on.
Look at this. Our guests, people in the comments are drinking it up. Mom's got hot tea. I appreciate it. Keisha's got Jim Beam vanilla. That sounds pretty smooth and delicious. And Candace has a water night because daylight savings time. And I definitely feel that. This hour change. It hits. It hits different every year. This year would hit strong. It hit back.
I slept straight through it. I didn't even really feel it, honestly. At least not yet. We'll see what happens. I was working all weekend. You can imagine why. So
right.
Now for us, man, y'all know we got two small ones, man. And the baby, he don't believe in going to sleep if it's still light outside. And so like 7 o'clock, 7:30 is typically wind down time. 2 weeks ago, 7:30, it was dark outside. Now it's like, it's still a party going on out the door. So now it's just
got to put them in a closet. It's dark out.
Get them blackout curtains. Be like, but you don't know.
The big one has blackout curtains. The little one needs to get blackout curtains. So we'll deal with that. So
yeah, man. I'm drinking on McKellen 12 today. Today's a good day, so I got stuff to drink up to. So I'm happy. That's why I'm drinking on, and some water.
It is. So. Hey man, so I know we always try to hold this thing to a hard hour, and I'd love to just jump right into the convo. The reason why everybody's here, the name of the episode is "Bitch Better Have My Money," because
hold up, it's called what?
Bitch Better Have My Money.
You didn't put that in the email.
He did not put that in the email.
Definitely did not.
I tagged y'all on Instagram with the name of with the flyer. The name of the episode.
I don't be looking at Instagram, man. I'm old school. I'm on Facebook. I don't know nothing about that.
Y'all are hilarious. We'll just call it Itch. Itch better have my money. How about that?
Okay, so it's B*TCH. So it really, it don't say bitch. It just say star.
Can we just make it Biden better have my money? Because that seems to be all the talking.
Yeah. Let's go with that.
Actually, you can pretty much insert any government official in that spot right now, and it would be fitting.
Who paying?
We can get into that too. Who is paying?
Yeah, it's us. So hey, let's if I don't know how to start this. Tasha, do you want to start? I guess you live in banking. How does this happen? How does this fail?
Yeah. I think that would be great if we could just get a recap, because I think some people saw the news today and weren't really understanding of what the hell happened. Why is everyone freaking out? So if we could do a recap up to the event that triggered everything, and then kind of how did that happen? That'd be great to kind of start us off.
Well, Justin can tell you what led up to today. And in full transparency, I am in the HR world now. So I don't do a whole lot with banking. I would be the one that I would be the one to have somebody's head for all of this going down. Yeah.
Hey, Tasha said, "Don't come for me on social media."
That is real. That is really how this happens, how banks fail. It comes down to leadership. For one, a bank has to have, just like us, we have to have liquidity, meaning we got to have cash, we got to have ways to pay our bills, we got to have assets, we got to have all those things. And when banks lose those things, that's how they fail. Simple. When they allow people to borrow money, more money than what they actually have in their, liquid assets or the liquidity that they have, when they allow people to withdraw more money than they actually have. So the things that we tell everybody to do with their household, as far as balancing your checkbook and keeping up with what comes in and what goes out, banks have to do the same thing. But when leadership allow those rules not to apply to their establishment, then they fail. And the part that I don't understand is how we can ask working class Americans to live off as little as possible, but we allow banks to kind of operate how they want to. This is what happened during, who was before Obama? Bush's era. Bush allowed that to happen. And Obama had to come in and he got flack for it, but he really did save us during that time by bailing out all of those banks, because we would have been in a mess had that happened, had he not done that. But during that time, banks were lending out money that they didn't have. Rates were going up, so they couldn't borrow money like they used to. It was just a mess. And that has transpired with these banks recently. And Justin can talk about these three in particular. But I can just let all of our listeners know, don't be worried about your, the money you have right now. I ain't trying to count your coin, but if you don't have over $250,000 sitting in an account, then you are straight. You're good to go.
So you're saying I don't need to worry about my refund check.
You don't need to worry about your refund check. You don't need to worry about none of your cash out money.
Cash app good.
Cash app good.
Okay.
Well, hold on.
Your Venmo, all of that.
My Venmo good.
Your Venmo good, all of it good. Unless you got $250, but now
hilarious.
Pretty much all of us gonna be good.
Okay. I'm down.
I'm down. Count my money.
I know. I ain't trying to count your money. If you got more than $250, then you need to talk to Justin afterwards to make sure that your stuff will be there tomorrow.
I don't need to talk. Maybe Candace need to talk to Justin, because sometimes she rich and don't tell nobody.
Oh, well, my mom always
that's the best kind of rich.
Everybody's supposed to have that account that nobody knows about, or that Crown Royal bag with the little money up in there. Yeah, you got to have that rolled up.
I love it.
This is the right timing to go in the backyard, bury up, go and dig up the Crown Royal bag. Got him.
Yeah.
But the price of these eggs, it might not be enough in that Crown Royal bag. You might have to drop 2 Crown Royal bags in the dirt. You gotta pile them up.
Right.
Damn. This is all dozen of eggs. This is what I get for choosing them brown eggs. I should have chosen them white eggs. Them white eggs.
I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm logging off the internet for the day.
Y'all got all the rest 15 minutes in.
I was just want to add, before we get into specifically Silicon Valley Bank, just add to what Tasha said, and that is, it's about risk, right? The leadership part that's the truth. That's the reality of the situation, is that someone makes a decision. Like a bank is filled with people, and people are making decisions, and they're supposed to evaluate and balance risk well. And that's what when we put our money in a bank, that's what we're saying when we participate in the banking system. When you keep your money in that Crown Royal bag or in your mattress or in a duffel bag, for all my duffel bag boys and girls out there, you're basically saying, I'm not participating in the banking business. And I think that's something that we'll get into in a little bit, is that banks are businesses, and they are in the business of money. And one key and very, very important thing at the center of all of this is the balance sheet. And I won't get too technical on that, but when you put your money into a bank, it's reverse. So like if I run a business and Tasha compensates me for my work and I put money in the bank, that cash is an asset to me as a business owner. But when you put money in a bank as a depositor, that is a liability to a bank because they owe you that back. It's not theirs. So I want to make sure that we're clear on how cash is viewed differently for a bank. It's kind of inverted. And when we put money in, they owe us. And so therefore, on a balance sheet, it becomes a liability. And then we can talk about like what happens with the cash that you put into a bank and how you get into situations just like Silicon Valley Bank, Signature, and others, how you get into situations where your balance sheet is imbalanced. And that's what Tasha was saying before. So I just wanted to share that one little factoid so that you, in your mind, you invert your thinking on how banks work as far as the business aspects of what they do.
So can I ask both of you guys a quick question before you jump into Silicon Valley? If cash is viewed by a bank as a liability, is a loan, like a home loan, then viewed as an asset? Because that's something that I owe back to the bank. Like that means that they can count on that cash always coming back to that bank as long as they hold that loan. Am I thinking about this the right way?
Yep.
Yeah.
You're thinking about it the exact right way. And though it has become more sophisticated, fundamentally, that's what banks are in the business of doing, is loaning out money. Yeah. Period. Like it can look a lot of different ways. It can be a small business loan. It can be a mortgage. It could be collateralized and combined with other things into other instruments. But at the end of the day, they're taking large lumps of money, packaging it, adding an interest rate and a product name, and then selling that in the form of a loan to somebody who needs it and that they approve of. So all the things we know about getting loans, credit score, job, income, all that stuff is supposed to help mitigate or underwrite risk as it relates to those loans. So that's what banks are fundamentally in the business of. And one could argue that most banks are not, should not be doing certain types of risk. And it should be far more conservative, which is why you'll see things like treasury bonds and other things that are other ways to make money outside or beyond loans. They'll look at other tools to produce yield, which is just cash, returns on large lumps of money.
Because at the beginning of it all, they started out as like S&L companies, where savings and loans. That's it. They were in the business of doing just savings accounts and loans. And most banking officers right now, they're not out trying to collect a whole lot of deposits. They're out trying to do the loans because that's where they're making the money. They're making the money off of these loans that we are in turn getting from them. So you're absolutely right, Justin. They're in the business of making loans.
Let me ask you guys a question because Justin, I think the thing that you're talking about, if I'm connecting those dots well enough, you're talking about leveraging and how they could be over leveraged in their process, in their banking process. One of the things that I wonder is, how does inflation or some of the things going on, all the conversation about interest rates being supported up, how this impacts a lot of that? Is that something that is connected to this very strongly, or is this like a separate deal?
You want to go, Tasha, or you want me to?
Yeah, you got it. But the raise, don't talk about the raise. Yeah, because that's the price that they pay for the money. Yeah,
that's right.
About it, Justin. That's what
bingo. you kind of just summed it up. But
yeah.
ultimately, if you go back to my previous statement, I was like, let's keep one thing in mind. Cash into a bank is a liability until they use it for something else, and then they can develop other tools or products that are assets that they can then monetize. And when we talk about interest rates, we and inflation, we tend to look at it from a very consumer oriented perspective, like the price of eggs or price of bread, and those things are affected. Those are kind of like the canaries in the mine, right? When we see the prices of these things go up, it typically is an indicator of other things, because these are equivalent, almost like raw materials, like eggs go in bread. So it's like, if the price of eggs are going up for me, that means the price of eggs are also going up for the person that's making bread, and then bread. And so it's a trickle down effect. But back to interest rates. Interest rates for a bank help determine how much money they can make on some of those non-loan products, right? Those non-loan ways that they're trying to produce returns on capital. So when money is cheap, and money has been exceptionally cheap, especially coming out of the pandemic, it's borderline free. And that's what I want you to think about. Think about money as something you can buy, right? I can buy money, right? I can buy cash. And when it's cheap, and the cheaper it is, the better that is for a banker, because in their mind, they're like, oh, I have this asset with very little, it costs me very little, and I can sell it really high, right? So they make their money on interest. And if I'm buying $1 for $1 or less than $1 in some instances, but I'm able to issue a loan and earn interest on it, that delta is where my profit is. That difference is where my profit is. And so when we talk about inflation, we're talking about it's almost like an organism. And to not get too intricate and too technical, you have your lungs and you have your brain. They both need each other, right? Without your lungs, your brain doesn't get oxygen. Without your brain, your lungs don't really know what to do. The muscles will know what to do, but not what to do with the air, right? Like feed it into your blood vessels so that you can lift something or run or just live. So these things work in tandem. So when interest rates are low, consumers fundamentally are encouraged to do one of two things: consume and borrow, and borrow to consume. So basically, it's all feeding the machine of consumption. Like buying. That's why when interest rates are low, you're encouraged to buy a house, because the lower the interest rates, the cheaper the money cost to buy that house, and therefore your payments will be lower, and you'll pay less money for that house over time than you will when interest rates are higher. So if you think about anything else in the world, if you can borrow against it for the same price as cash, you will choose to borrow, because keeping cash in your bank account is favorable. Like, I have more liquidity. I can do more things with cash than I can with, say, debt. So even though you have entities that have plenty of cash, they will still borrow money, especially when it's cheap. So that's part one. Part two, when we talk about inflation, we're talking about the dynamic between what someone is paying something relative to what they paid before, right? So inflation is kind of a tricky thing, but basically what it means is it's almost like too much air in your lungs, right? And when you have too much air in your lungs, what the Fed will do is they'll raise rates so that you will consume. You're less encouraged to consume, right? So when your rates are higher, it's supposed to have the adverse effect. Well, rates are high. I'm not going to buy the expensive thing. I'm not going to spend money on this. And so that's to try to curb the rising prices or the rising cost of things. And remember, everything is paid for with money. So the people that you're buying bread from, the farmer that is raising chickens and producing eggs, also borrows money. So his or her costs to produce eggs or bread or your favorite car or whatever, if his costs go up, typically what you'll see is so will your costs. And that's that difference, that delta is inflation. And so when interest rates rise, it's supposed to say, like, really is supposed to be a signal to consumers to buy less because it's going to be more expensive.
Yep.
And for businesses, it's the same thing. It's going to be more expensive to make the thing, so make a little less of it. Right? So if it's a nice garment, and for $100 you should be able to make 10 of them, but now we can only make 5. That's supposed to be good. Like, great. Right. That will help curb or ease spending and what they say cool off the economy, which is people will spend less, maybe save a little bit more, and that helps with the supply demand curves and helps to curb inflation. So, and there's a bank component to this as well. But if you remember that banks are in the business of loaning money, and when it's cheap, they loan it more freely, meaning they lower restrictions, income verification, debt to income ratio matters less. All these things that they're supposed to hold in higher regard, they tend to relax that because from their vantage point, the money is cheap and therefore it is less risky, even though it's arguable that it's not. Yep, go ahead.
So let me then try and connect this, because I think you have more insight about this, but just off of what you're saying, I think I'm starting to get a little bit more clarity of the problem that happened with SVB, right? Silicon Valley Bank. So you got these startups then who got like a crazy ton of money from investors, and they need to deposit it somewhere. But that's a huge liability from what you're saying from these banks. And that causes them to do some crazy risky things to try and address that liability with also trying to make a side coin on the side, right?
Yes, that's their business.
Get some money out, right? So where did they go wrong? What happened there? Because it seemed like it must have been working for a minute. They're a very popular bank. What stopped? What changed?
So there's an ecosystem of problems here. I'm using that word very loosely.
Okay.
So I want to break down real quick how a average bank will work. All right. So Carrie comes to the Bank of Dawkins. You put in $100. I have to have a certain amount of reserves. So I take 10 of your dollars, and I have to have that based on the law and the regulation. The other 90, I can do different things. I can invest it in a bond. I can issue a loan. I can do other things to try to produce returns on that capital, because if I'm holding it, then in theory, right, I can leverage it until you need it, right? And the entire banking system is betting on everybody not running to the bank at the same time to take out what they're owed or what they put in. And so the average bank, when they look at those, when they try to make decisions to what to do with that other $90, they diversify it, right? So they'll issue a small business loan. They'll issue a mortgage, which is in the grand scheme of loan products, is probably one of your safer ones because everybody need a roof. There's usually a lot more red tape you have to go through to even get a mortgage, right? So they typically have income verification, credit scores, all these things that are supposed to make the underwriting or make that particular loan less risky. All right. So I may put $20 into a treasury bond. I may put another piece of money in the stock market, right? I may do all these things, and I'm going to diversify that $90 as much as I can. Okay. That's what the average, normal, regular bank will do. This is what Silicon Valley Bank was doing. And this is when you hear it, you're going to like, what? So remember I said to diversify my loans, or diversify that other $90, I might distribute it in different ways. Well, the problem, and one of the problems, because they had many, one of the problems was they were issuing loans to unproven businesses. So it was highly risky money. They were taking $30 of that $90 and putting into a business that does not have the revenue yet to back it up. So they were betting. It was a much riskier bet. That was part one. Part two was that because of the network of Silicon Valley, and they know that they're working with entrepreneurs that are building value, they're building, potentially massive companies. Entrepreneurs are one of the hardest people groups to issue mortgages to. So guess what Silicon Valley Bank was doing? They were issuing mortgages to the entrepreneurs that they had just given $10 million to as a loan for their business. So they now have money tied up, not just in the business and their startup, but they have even more money tied up in an entrepreneur who's running a risky business. So when you think about the underwriting for your mortgage, if you've ever bought a house, you're like, all right, I got to tell how much money I make. I tell my occupation. They're looking at what is the likelihood of you keeping your job or losing that job, et cetera. So that was the second thing that they did. And then in all the underwriting and some of the covenants, they would say, oh, and by the way, you have to keep your cash at our bank, which was another layer of risk. So we just talked about diversification of risk. So they are holding your cash. So if an investor invested in your business, they're holding that cash. So now it's at risk, or at least anything over 250K is at risk. They hold your mortgage, and you are a risky mortgage holder because you work in the startup world. Your business could fail for a lot of different reasons at any time. And we issued your business a loan, a very large loan called venture debt that we also hold. And the covenants for that basically created a closed network of risk as opposed to an open network of risk, whereas the average bank today, if you went to Bank of America and did the same thing, that $90 would probably go to someone else's mortgage, but not here, or less risky, right? And so it created this closed network of capital flow and distribution, but it was all highly risky and all betting on things like valuations going up, that business figuring out, becoming less risky over time, and no defaulting, right? Or the bank not failing, because if the bank fails, well, look at the three things that fail. The cash goes away, anything above 250 potentially vanishes, which means you can't pay yourself as an employee of the said company, which means you can't pay your mortgage, and you don't have any cash to service the loan that they also issued to your bank. So literally in one kind of swing of the bat, Tasha, I know you and your family would appreciate a swing of the bat. In one swing of the bat, you're now triply exposed on the same dollar. So imagine that 90 cents, 30 cents went to somebody's mortgage, 30 cents went to that same person's small business, and then you got to have the cash reserve. So you're talking about, of a whole dollar, you're talking about a very large portion of that dollar staying within that network, which makes it all risky, because if Silicon Valley fails, and this was the bet that they were making, Silicon Valley ain't gonna fail. So me issuing this loan to a entrepreneur who just raised $20 million on a $100 million valuation, that business is not going anywhere. Their investors are going to make sure that they continue to go on, have plenty of cash, can service the loan, which means you can pay the mortgage and everybody else can pay their mortgages for the people you hire. So it created this very closed network of risk, and it was highly exposed. And that is why it was important to step in, because at the surface level, what we saw was, a bank failed. But actually, it was because of the interconnectedness and the binding that they had, the covenants that they had in their loan agreements. It was like, if one of these things failed, then they all fail. And we're talking about billions of dollars tied up, not just in cash, but also in loans, profits that are supposed to be made from those loans, people's mortgages and houses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it was almost like its own little country, and they the money was just circulating within that bubble, and there was no way to mitigate the risk by investing outside of it.
So Tasha, I got a question for you. From inside the bank, whose responsibility, or how do these decisions get made on how we, or what risk we choose to dive into? Is that you and the vice president, bank leadership? Like, how are those decisions made on an ongoing basis within the bank on what kind of risk we want to take?
Now, when I was there, all loans had over a certain amount had to go before a loan committee. Like I had a certain threshold I could lend without having to take a loan to loan committee. And at that time, I think when I left, my limit was 5 million. I could do anything under 5 million. Anything over 5 million had to go to loan committee. And that's when the things that Justin talked about, as far as your credit risk, all those things were weighed on the table. And it was discussed. And they made the decision whether or not to take on the risk or to decline the risk. It goes back to what I mentioned in the beginning as far as leadership and also relationships. A lot of these banks will still lend on relationships. Some of them have automated their whole lending process because of that, but others still good old boy handshaking type of lending where, you scratch my back, I scratch your back. So yeah, I'll go on and take this risk on you. I remember a situation, I had a church to come and they wanted to do, it was $20-something thousand. I don't even think it was $25,000 to get a church van. They wanted to get a loan to get a church van. I had to get some guarantors. I had to get a list of the tithing members of the church. I had to get bylaws. It was so much I had to get for the $25,000 just to lend the money to that church. But you as an individual, you can come in and you can borrow money to get a $50,000, $60,000 car and you wouldn't have to go through the same things. It's because in the banking eyes, church lending is a risky type of loan. So they have all these different industries that they consider that are risky. And then they have, the ones that they are really willing to bet on. I would almost bet that in this situation with Silicon Valley, a lot of that was some good old boy type of stuff. It was some, and I can't speak 100% on it, but I can almost guarantee you that is what happened. You and I probably couldn't have gone in there and got a $10 million loan for our business, as well as a $750,000 loan for our house, and then given an open-ended line of credit. That wouldn't happen for us. But when you have a relationship with bankers, sometimes they will take that risk on you. So I would encourage folks, that's viewing today to get you a relationship with a banker that'll take that risk on you and give you that 5 million, without asking a whole lot of questions. But to answer the question, to sum it up, that decisions are made by humans.
And I'm assuming there's no, like, if I make a bad loan, outside of losing my job, there's no recourse for me making a bad loan. I made a mistake, I just made a bad loan.
Not really. To be honest with you, because you don't really get fired from a bank unless they figure out that you stealing money.
Jeff, I was going to ask.
They will look at a bad loan as the creditor had the issue. Not that the underwriter, not that there was issues with the underwriting, which is what they call the whole process of weighing the risk and looking at if a borrower can pay the money back. They don't look at it that way. They look at it more as the creditor defaulted on the loan. But if they drill down to the root or to the beginning of the loan was probably a bad loan from the beginning. But they decided that, okay, their credit might not be 700 and maybe 625, but this is an up and coming business. Like in this situation with the Silicon Valley, these were businesses that they thought that were going to be very profitable and bring more money so that they can do that whole cycle thing of lending more money and, making money off the money that's being loaned out to them. But hey, there is not a whole lot of recourse when it comes to lending out money, because I know when I was in banking, there was some bad loans that were done, and those people are still lending money. They are still in banking.
They're still out here giving out bad money.
Yep.
Let me ask y'all, because it almost seems like, Jeff, to go a step further, it almost seems like you're almost incentivized to engage in a degree of like crazy risk, because you just don't know what's going to pop off, right? Like, I don't know. In Silicon Valley, I guess, specifically, it's like, I don't know that some cat poop spray that has an app is going to take off and be billions of dollars, but I need to get this money out just in case.
Yeah.
Right.
I need that loan on the books. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I need to make SVB some money here. And is it the case that in terms of banking culture, it's like they're kind of like, if we lose 9 times out of 10, that's okay. That one that makes that big pop is worth it. Is that the case? Especially when it's like you're going to insure $250,000 for each person? Is that it?
Well, that's the problem. What you just described, Kerry, that's my job. My job is to find 1 in 10, 2 in 10, 3 in 10 that's going to return all of the capital on risk. That's my job as a venture capitalist. That is not but the expectation and what my bank should not be taking the same level of risk that I'm taking. That's
it should be in your office like, so what we gonna do?
Right. It's
cat poop spray.
Yeah.
They should be saying no to the cat poop spray, just like me. They shouldn't even entertain the cat poop spray until the cat poop spray has proven that they can sell 25,000 units a day, and they need money for purchase orders, or they need money like after the risk has been mitigated, after they reduce the risk. Our companies go to banks after we figured out how to make their businesses less risky. We do not walk into banks along with our money and go, well, we just invested $2 million, so you should give them two extra $1 million and run this bet with us. Like, that's a bad idea for a banker to be doing, because we're not underwriting it the same way, and the expectations from our stakeholders, in our case, our investors, they expect us to make certain types of risk. They don't expect their banker or their financial advisor to be making the same risk as me. And
so what I hear you saying is, Justin is smarter. He can manage that risk. But Ray and them that work in the front desk at Wells Fargo, they don't need to be out here talking about cat poop spray.
Nope.
They don't need to be like, oh, you got cat poop spray? Here's $1 million house. They don't need to be in that business. Am I hearing that? Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Because in America, we have all these regulations to stop situations like this. I mean, think about the medical field. Like, people should not be leaving the country to go get any type of surgeries. Speaking to my sisters, the BBLs and stuff we want to get, we need to do them right here. We know that there's some regulations in place that's gonna make sure that those utensils and stuff that are being used are clean.
Right.
We go other places, they don't have those same regulations. Same with your bank. You need to make sure that your bank is FDIC insured. If you got the discretionary income to start dibbling, dabbling in other stuff and want to take the risk, then you go see Justin. But if you don't have that kind of money, you go put your money right there in a bank where you know it's going to be FDIC insured. Don't take the risk.
But now, as me, go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
What I just heard is that
BBLs should only be done in America.
Right. Yes. And that's just real talk.
Is the Mexico of BBLs. Is that
That's it.
Hey,
look,
there's a cartel out here kidnapping people, going to get SVP BBLs. We got all the acronyms. We got all the acronyms today. The SVPs are being kidnapped by
the BBLs.
Tosh, I appreciate it, because that is fairly accurate. Unfortunately, you have a whole community of people running around getting BBL.
Yeah,
and they should not be putting anybody under the knife. That's
the word of cat poop spray. They just out here like, hey, I got cat poop spray. I need a BBL, SVP. What's up? Right?
What's up?
Ladies and gentlemen,
and SVP like, hey, let's do it. Let's do
it.
Hey,
we did it last week. Like we did it last week. Go and get 3 more.
It worked.
Well, it's the same thing that we've seen. Like everything is in cycles. And remember I said when the money was cheap, they were able to buy it and then issue it, and it was gravy because money was so cheap. Interest rates were low. We could charge whatever, and we're gonna make money on top of fist. And then if you think about Silicon Valley and the great run that it's had, pretty much anything remotely close to innovation, we haven't had a breakthrough innovation in technology come out of Silicon Valley in a while. Like when I'm saying breakthrough, I'm talking about like, the world is about to be a better place because of this thing. We've had what's called incremental innovation. We've had, other types. And so we definitely live in a place where technology has really improved our productivity and in many cases improved our lives. We've seen medicine, we've seen robotics, we see AI. But as far as like breakthrough polio vaccine, I'm gonna save the oceans with this machine. Like as far as like real and see that is the other side of this. A quick tangent, I'm gonna come back. The other side of this is mixed in to all of this very risky money is real innovation, because for every cat poop potpourri mobile app, there is somebody working on something game changing, and their money was tied up in that bank, just like the cat poop. So that is the problem, is that you're mixing, you're literally hedging our futures, our country's future as it relates to innovation. You want to start getting into international affairs, you want to start getting into national security risks, you want to start getting into some real serious stuff. Set us back 10 years by that PhD student from Stanford or MIT or Georgia Tech no longer having the cash they need to pay other PhDs to solve some of our actual problems because their money was in the same bank as cat poop, spray.
So that's why Obama had to do what he had to do, and it was to save us, the average American. He had to do that. He had to bail those banks out because our money was tied up in all of the corruption of the ones that were not doing it the right way. So in order to save the majority, he had to, bail out the banks.
Let's talk about that, because Janet Yellen came out strong. She came out
swinging.
She came out strong on Saturday. She was like, "What Europe say? London said they ain't gonna bail your ass out. Hell no, I ain't bailing your ass out." And they dropped the mic. So is that, if from your point of view, from both of your point of views, was that the right call to say there are no bailouts? But then it sounds like the administration said it's a mini bailout. Like, we're going to bail out Main Street. We're not going to bail out the bank. We're going to make sure people get their money. Right?
Well, I think that I think you answered the question, like in your ask. What I encourage people to interrogate and really attempt to learn is the difference between, remember I said this very early on, your money into a bank makes you a stakeholder and you are a liability to the bank. Okay. What the Fed stepped in and said was, if you're a depositor, your money is fine.
Right.
Like, we're going to make sure you have access so you can continue doing what you're doing. But this business is done. It's gone. So there's still going to be ripple effects, because that includes their loan products. Yeah. That includes some of those mortgages. That includes all these other, basically what they said is your cash is cool.
Yeah.
But all these other things will still have to be liquidated, figured out. We're going to try to find a buyer for that, a buyer for this. So there's still going to be some things that happen because of it. But it's important to split out folks who had money in the bank. It's just like Bank of America. Your money is your cash is in the bank. It's safe. But Bank of America, oh no, that we finna do something with that. That's going to be liquidated. We're going to figure out where to put these assets into more trusted hands. and we're going to make sure that we don't stifle innovation for the next. I honestly believe if the bank completely fails and people don't have their money, they're setting us back at least half a generation. You're talking about 10 to 15 years of time lost as people try to figure out, because you got to think the investors had their money in that bank too.
Yeah.
So but now I'm worried. But Justin, I think the thing I worry about now is that if you bail out people, I guess here's my thing. This is my thing even back to 2008.
Yeah.
I wouldn't invest in cat poop spray guy, right? Like, I don't care. That sounds like a bad business, right? I don't care that you got a Tesla. I don't care that you got a $1 billion house. I think it's all shit, right? If cat poop spray guy walked up to me and said, "Here's my Cash App," I'd be like, "Get out of my face. I need to go about my day," right? But now, if my taxes end up helping cat poop spray guy continue on cat poop spray experience, right? Yeah. Where he's going to keep going with that, I think it's a bad investment. And I worry about the next SVB that's like, oh, they're going to take care of the deposits, right? They're going to take care of some of this. So we should just keep bailing out. We should just keep going with some more crazy stuff. Who's got the next?
Am I also thinking about this right? Yes, there's $5 million from cat poop spray, but there's also $30,000 from the janitor at the bank. Right.
Yeah. Correct.
So how do you, so Tasha, or I can't determine, the Fed can't determine whose money we should bail out and who's. It's like, if you have an account at this bank, you're secure. But my question really goes back to, Justin, one of the things you brought up, and then Tasha, this is both of you guys, right? Like, if the same bank issued out a bad home loan to these people that weren't based on any real dollar value, and then JP Morgan comes along and says, okay, cool, we will buy the home mortgages from SVP, my ability to pay back that loan is flawed from jump. So it doesn't matter who owns the loan.
It is a risky asset. What you're saying is JP Morgan will likely not buy that mortgage for any more than a couple dimes. If they buy it at all. Right? They're going to go into the underwriting, to Tasha's point, and they're going to start looking at some of these mortgages and figure out, okay, what was true when these mortgages were issued, and they're going to be like, oh, I'm not buying that.
Right.
I'm not buying that for dollar.
Yeah.
Oh, this is like the tranche packaging that they used to do with packages of mortgages and grading out the risk of them and being like, cat poop spray guy, bad investment. I'm not buying that guy's mortgage. I don't think he's going to be able to pay. But janitor dude, solid dude, okay loan, maybe let's buy that. Is that what you're talking about?
Fundamentally at a basic level, because it's going to take time. Gotcha. They may have thousands of mortgages probably. And so it'll take time to figure out and rate them, analyze them, or for the sake of speed, and this is the part about the bundling, they may just package them all up, determine, may take a sample out of that and be like, okay, we're going to look at 100 mortgages, see where those land, and then rate the risk. And then if it's too risky, I'm not paying more than 30 cents on the dollar.
Right.
And then that's just it.
We should just let AI do all this. I'm done.
AI can do it, and it might actually help improve the outcomes for some folks. But you also got to remember who taught the AI. So that's what I'm saying.
But you can't let AI do it because AI is still programmed by white people.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to go there.
Yeah, no, that's a true statement, because I know CB&T went to automated credit underwriting, where they had almost like a rubric, and they would submit your loan application, and based off these certain criteria, they would decide whether or not that they would do the loan or not. Well, that didn't take into consideration, your years with the bank, or your history with the bank, or you didn't default on it. I mean, it was very stringent type of rules that they had that weeded out a whole lot of Black folks, whole lot of us.
Yep.
Now
zip code.
Give loans to people with a certain zip code.
Right?
Well, I mean, basing an AI bot off of historical trends and historical facts is where the problem is, because it's the history that's tainted in racism. So building an algorithm off of that is all over the place.
Yeah.
But just someone saying cat poop spray guy is a problem. Let's not give him $5 billion, right? Well, that's what I'm talking about. We've got to find a better system other than cat poop spray's best friend that works in underwriting. That's like, but he good though.
Yeah.
Because everybody got cats. You know what I mean? Like, we got to get you know what I mean?
Well, that's what I hope comes out of this in the macro, right? Like, is a more intellectual, deep thinking interrogation, like a real conversation of what it means to have closed networks of innovation. Right? We have literally a world full of problems, and the vast majority of the solutions comes out of two spots in this country for the most part. The Northeast, primarily in Boston, and this thing they call Silicon Valley. That's where the vast majority of innovation comes from. I can tell you right now, those people, some of those people, most of those people ain't never spent a day in Vine City, Atlanta. So they are disconnected from what real problems and challenges are, because they sit in this place, they sit in these bubbles, passing money around to each other, and which means they are not incentivized to get outside of those bubbles, and so they have to start making up problems. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to deliver groceries faster than you. It's like, how many grocery delivery apps do we really need? And how fast do you really need groceries?
More. I need more. I need
more options. I need the next one to deliver it in 12 minutes instead of 15. And I got 33 engineers come up with the perfect algorithm for that. Like, really? Like, what does it mean to have closed networks of innovation? Meaning the entire sphere is feeding itself and not allowing for open innovation, which is what we need.
Oh, so you would advocate for more open networking, like loose, not closed, basically.
Right? I'm not necessarily advocating for either or. What I'm saying is I do believe that it's problematic to have all of our innovation come from just two places when there's literally a world of problems.
Gotcha.
One of the things. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, I was going to say, one of the things you're hearing a lot about right now, Justin, we had the conversation yesterday. Tasha, I want to bring you into it, is, depending on where you sit on the aisle, it was, President Trump loosened the restrictions on Dodd-Frank, right? That list of laws that were put in place to protect consumers after the last crisis we went through from a banking perspective.
Right.
Can you give the listeners some, because I think right now, if you were to go on Google, the highest search term right now is Dodd-Frank.
Oh, really? Look, I'm about to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue, right? Because so many people talking about, I don't know if people know what it is. What is Dodd-Frank? What did it do? How did it protect us? And maybe if you can answer, and maybe this is maybe too big. When Trump got rid of it, what did that do as well?
Now, did he get rid of it altogether?
No, I don't think
he relaxed it.
Yeah,
he relaxed it.
Yeah. Well, it was basically put in place as an oversight, like to have a sounding board or rules and regulations or a principle, if you would say, for Wall Street, because they were just doing what they wanted to do. It was Wall Street and it was America. And once, I think this happened all right after the Obama bailout and all of that.
Yeah.
he had to come up with something to say, okay, I did this for you this time, but I'm gonna put this committee or this group or this act in place that now you have to check all these boxes before you're able to do what you're notoriously known to do. And I don't know how much Trump lessened that, and Justin, you can speak more to that. But I know when it first came out, it was basically just to have a checks and balances for what was going on in Wall Street.
Yeah. So to go a step further, Carrie, you actually brought this up earlier, and you hit the nail on the head. A lot of Dodd-Frank had to do with mortgages and what was happening with mortgage-backed securities and all these tranches and all this super creative I call them spreadsheet gangsters, coming up with new ways to sell more products.
100% financing. Yeah, they were lending 125%. Like they were paying you to get a loan, to get a mortgage. So you get not only 100% financing, but 100% financing, and then give you $10,000 to do renovation.
Right.
Yeah.
So when money was cheap, when regulations are relaxed, people tend to think things will last. And in that moment of relaxed regulation, this is prior to 2008. This is what rolled up to 2008. And then I'll speak on what 45 did. What happened was you had all these spreadsheet gangsters building these. Remember, they're in the business of creating products to sell, like their loans, all kinds of things. So they're like, oh, what's more secure than a mortgage? People gonna pay their mortgage. Matter of fact, we know people gonna pay their mortgage so much, we'll give them more mortgages because nobody wants to default on a mortgage. It's the worst thing that can happen to your credit score. It's the worst thing that can, obviously you can lose your house, the roof over your head. And it is one of the ways and mechanisms to generate future cash flows for things like college, retirement, all these things. So nobody's going to default on a mortgage. Well, the problem with that concept is if you relax all the requirements to get one mortgage, to basically not even consider, do you even have other mortgages? Like that wasn't in consideration. How much money you earn, your existing debt, how much, all these things were relaxed to a point where basically your name and social security number got you a mortgage.
Yep.
And
I benefited from it.
Right. And here's the thing.
Listen, I was 23 years old, making $23,500, and I bought a house.
Hey.
Now,
was it a nice house?
100% financing at that. 100%. I figured out it was cheaper for me to buy a house than get an apartment. And so I bought my first house at 23.
So now here's the thing. So responsible people, financial literate people, that opportunity is an amazing opportunity. Like, I'm gonna go make this work. I'm not gonna buy something too far outside of my means. I'm looking at what I can afford in rent. I'm just trying to find a mortgage that matches up, because if I pay the same or less, I'm still gonna be in a good spot, and I get to say I own the thing instead of rent the thing. So it's great. Like it's a good fundamental concept.
Right.
The problem is you have a bunch of people who do not understand money, and then these banks, particularly in this era, they weren't really talking to each other and really didn't care to talk to each other. So if Tasha she got that first mortgage, but she also knows that she could have easily went out and gotten one or two more with very little filtering or oversight on her decisions. And that's what created this runaway train of people with 2 or 3 mortgages, adjustable rate mortgages. So we talked about inflation and all these things. When the interest rates are low, oh, it's great, it's fine. But as soon as that thing climbs, your mortgage payment goes from $900 to $1,600, and you got 3 of them. It's a very different math equation, right? The result is very different. So what 45 did is he didn't relax all of them, but he relaxed enough of it to continue to drive down the cost of money, and also to encourage consumption of all types, consumption of things, but also going back to mortgages. So Dodd-Frank originally was I think it was primarily for banks to not take advantage of consumers by offering products that they cannot afford, but know that they will buy. And those that need cash, I was telling Jeff yesterday, it is expensive to be poor in this country.
Yep.
So
it really is.
So things like payday loans, you can't say, oh, here's a 80%, 120%. You gotta like that whole. That's what those laws were originally created. He was basically like, nah, like we don't need all these things. Let me relax it for my cronies and the homies so they can continue to build their skyscrapers and build their golf courses and all these other things with cheap money and cheap mortgages. And then, you know, the average American will find their way.
Right.
Well, again, that's putting a lot of trust in the banks to do their job. And they're just not going to do it.
It's almost like an economic philosophy a bit with Trump or 45. That's like, you don't really need Main Street to do what's right. You need capitalists and big entrepreneurs and big developers to make that money and then let that trickle down to everyone else that's less able to. But
well, he led
this don't work, right?
Right.
That math don't matter.
He led through experience. That was his life. That was how he ran his businesses. So that's all he did was he ran the country the same way he ran his business. And so the logic don't.
The math don't math though, because he bankrupted multiple times. And it's like, how we gonna do this? We're just gonna keep bankrupting? Like, how this gonna work? So yeah,
because he can't find a place to get the money. Well, see, so this is an interesting part of the convo, though. When we think about when he relaxed Dodd-Frank, it was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So money at the time was already free. Like interest rates at that point in our country
were low
anyway. So like, how much more free can we make this money for these banks to buy it?
Well, I mean, the answer to the question, Jeff, is zero. What you mean? Like it wasn't quite. It was low, but it wasn't zero, and it was zero for a very long time. Like
you saw the same thing. You saw the same thing with Bush after 9/11. 9/11 happened, and Bush very intentionally was like the way to kind of quell people's fears about the war on terror with 9/11 terrorism is to make sure every American can buy a house. Right. Well, that sounds good in 2001. Very bad in 2008. Right. When it's like everyone got a house. Right.
Y'all know the condo, the joint we had in Loganville. Same thing, Sean. 100% finance. Like, I mean, we might. I think that thing might have been like 120 grand. We might have put about 6 grand down. Like, like I mean, it wasn't 5. It wasn't 5-6%, baby. That thing was like, it was. My man probably said, "How much you got?"
Yeah.
Yep.
And it wasn't so much the 100% financing; it was the arms that everybody had on these mortgages.
The adjustable rates.
The adjustable rate, because that thing went from 0% to like 7%. In 5 years. So people were jumping into these mortgages with a 5-year arm, and in 5 years, a lot of their salaries didn't double, so they were stuck with having to pay double of the mortgage.
Well, shit, it's been 20 years, the salary still ain't double.
Before someone takes an adjustable rate mortgage, they should have to pass a math test. Be like, you don't know what the hell.
Kerry, you bring up a great point, though. There is very little accountability for the consumer when it comes to the math of things. There is accountability to making the payments. There's accountability to the deposits. But as far as like, okay, if this thing adjusts to this rate, like, do I understand that? Nah. Like that is not there, and that clogs. The reason that that's not there is because that will clog up the throughput.
Well, it also adds judgment into the system that, like, I don't know that you are a sound customer. You don't understand what's going on here, right? But it's like some of that's kind of needed, right? Because Cat Poop Guy is out here hustling people left and right. You know what I mean?
And you see that in certain programs, right? You see that in like first-time homebuyer programs. You may partner with the FHA. You may partner with the SBA if you're buying a business or something. It may require you to go through some programming. But if you think about, and Carrie, this goes back to a previous point that I think you made. If you go back to how a lot of people buy their first homes, particularly most white people, their parents
right.
will give them the down payment on a traditional. They're not even participating in the FHA process.
No.
Right.
So they are skipping, and that's what wealth allows you to do. It allows you to skip stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good and great, and then other times it's like, oh, well, you're not going to learn what you need to learn so that you understand. Okay, well, if I skip this step today, who's going to go back and be like, oh, I forgot to learn this thing? They don't even know. And then they go and buy their second house and their third house, and then it becomes perpetual, and the machine just keeps going. So it's the stuff that should be taught in schools.
Right.
We should be really asking ourselves, why is this not taught in school? Well, there's when people know, they do better.
Well,
So,
I mean, you brought this up. You brought up schools. Everything that we talked about is happening right now with student loans, and this is one of the biggest bubbles. That when that thing goes burst, I don't know how we gonna make it out of this, because it's so much. Oh, who wouldn't pay back their student loan? Who wouldn't pay that stuff back? How do people need to make money? How do people qualify? What kind of entrance? You don't even have to do a credit check to get a student loan. You just got to enroll, right?
And it's like, you know the answer. Like, I don't think you have to ask yourself what will happen if the bubble bursts. You know the answer to it. It's what's the impact on the economy? If it's devastating, then they're going to protect the bank, right?
Well,
like
my question is just sort of like what Justin just said. My suspicion is that the people that have a majority of the student loan debt are brown people, or minoritized populations, first-time borrowers, first-generation students, things like that. So I think the question would be, is the impact of a collapse in student loans, is that relative to everyone, or is that relative to a certain population? Because I think COVID showed you, once they started saying that was falling on racial lines, the whole COVID strategy changed as a nation.
So, I think that there's two things that stick out when it comes to student loans. There is an exit process for getting out of your student loans, but not wanting to get in it. I don't understand that. They be like, oh, you have not satisfied all the requirements of your loan until you go to this class. And you're like,
right,
I done spent 12 years and $100,000 or $50,000 or $30,000 paying this, and I gotta to satisfy my loan. But this wasn't here before. When I was 17 and I applied for the thing, or 18 when I enrolled in college, this was not a thing. So I just wanted to say, like, some things are backwards. The bigger thing is what we saw Robert Smith do it with a class of Morehouse. I think it was a class of 2020 or 2021. And what does it mean and how may your decisions be different if you do not come out of college with a financial burden as big as paying $800, $1,000, $1,100, right? To restart repaying, your student loans, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months after you graduate. You might go into entrepreneurship instead. You might not take that job. You might move back home with your parents and figure something out. You may travel a little bit, see the world. Well, these are all, in my opinion, positives for a 21, 22, 23-year-old. Like, I wish that I had those options, and for sure, I wish that was an option to me. I think that the reason that policymakers aren't really excited to step in is because it disrupts the system of. I mean, think about it like this. Keep it super, super simple. We have a labor shortage right now. And we also have a class of people who are overeducated, meaning they're overqualified for most of the jobs that they can even apply for, or their education is misaligned with the jobs, right? Meaning, so they need to be upskilled. They need to go and grab like they have to do something different, even though they already have this $80,000 degree that they cannot use, right? So if you reset all of that, you right that wrong, because that was another thing that I didn't get from, and I love my parents to death, but I did not get guidance from my guidance counselor or my parent on what I should study. It's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, oh, I think I want to do this. No, what we should have been doing is like, here are the jobs of the future.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Go get a degree in computer science. As an example. And we've seen it work around at work, but it was like, no, like you can go and get a liberal arts degree. There's no shade of liberal arts degree. You can go and get one in social work. And there's nothing wrong with any of those jobs if that's where you end up working. But it is absolutely problematic if that's not where you end up working.
Well, I think even more so, Justin, some of the things that you're talking about, one of the questions I think would be a salient point for incoming freshmen is, why are you in college? Are you in college to move up the social mobility ladder, or are you in college to just learn for the sake of learning, right? Because I'm in college
because my parents told me that was what's next.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There is how your parents send you to college, but then there's how you need to navigate college. And I think for some people that this is a huge thing with modern languages, classical and modern languages, where they'll say, there's no point in studying French anymore because it doesn't really lead to jobs, right? But there's the study of studying French that adds some value to people, but not if you're trying to move up the social mobility ladder. We don't do a good enough job of crafting that value proposition for students and saying, look, if you came here to get the best paying job, it's not through French, right? French will add some stuff to you, but that ain't what's going to happen here. And you need to understand that your high school did not prepare you well to do that. Right? It's going to take a little bit longer, but you can use a ton of debt, because once you get out of here, you need to be able to make that money and make it do something with it. Right? But you don't have enough of that, what you're talking about, that educated decision making, that elevated decision tree that would help students navigate those fields. But I'll stop because I'll get on a soapbox. That's my
y'all was running. I'm just like, hey, it's an hour and 17 minutes in.
Sir,
they're tired. Like, I'm like, hey, I got you. You want to keep going? I'll leave the stream open, but I'm going to bed. You're more than welcome to stay here, but your boy's going to sleep. But no, real talk, man. This has been a great show. I feel like we eventually probably need to pop back in and obviously have the college conversation, because that's a whole nother ball of wax that we could spend a whole 2 hours talking about. So
I also think we need to come back to this and call it 60, 90 days. It doesn't have to be me. I won't speak for Tasha, but I do think that you should revisit it and see the ripples, see what we look like in a quarter, a quarter and a half.
We'll just suck y'all back in. Hey,
I mean, but we still need to have the conversation, to everybody about diversification, just to make sure that when we are at that point, or some of us may be already at that point where we have the funds and we're not putting them all in one place. There are too many avenues out there for us to put our money in different places for us to have it all our eggs in one basket. So we do.
Well, shut up then. Let's do the convo in a couple weeks. It sounds like you coming back. We're gonna do a financial month. Again, hold on. I think April after spring break is our financial literacy month here at Steam Truck. We're gonna have Tasha and Justin back to talk about diversifying your portfolio,
diversifying your bags. Yeah, diversify the bag.
Right.
Hey, Tasha, you know this. You know you need more than one purse.
Yeah. Now that's
it's gotta match the shoes. You gotta have one. The big purse for the movie theater, the little purse for date night, the clutch,
your everyday purse, your bus bag, all of it.
All that. So we gonna get into where. I'm happy to chat about that, both as an individual as well as if you're a business and you got large amounts of money. Where should you consider or talk to somebody about where to put it until you need it. So happy to do it. Happy to come back and talk because we're talking about that at the fund right now and wanting to provide some guidance to some of our general guidance because we do not have all the certifications to be considered financial advisors, but we can give high level like suggestions and introduce them to people who are actually certified and qualified to do these things. So I'll do something similar here at a high level.
I think the
some ideas.
Will love that because I think we ain't had nobody drop off the whole show. Like you can see, you know, I sit here and probably watch the metrics a little bit too much. And it's been the same group watching the whole damn show. So that means y'all were dropping some real gems. So it seems like the people want y'all. The streets want y'all back.
Big talk. I love it.
All right, so y'all are not new here. Y'all know this portion of the show. It's Hero Villain, where you tell us who your hero was for the week, or I guess last week, or however that works out. Y'all tell us who your hero, who your villain. You don't have to have a hero. You don't have to have a villain. But you got to give us something. So, Tasha, First Lady, you can kick us off here. Who is your hero? Who is your villain for the week?
I would have to say my hero is my better half. I wonder if he's still watching. I'm trying to get.
He probably sleep on the couch.
Nah. I mean, for real, because he holds it down. Last week I had to spend 2 days in Tifton. Ain't nothing in Tifton. Right. I spent 2 days down there and
but police officers.
That part. Mm-hmm. Look, and a city trend. There was a city trends, and I was like, people still.
There was a city trend.
There was a city trend next to the Dollar Tree. I had to go in the Dollar Tree, and I was like, man, a city trend, and they were going in there. But yeah, he would be my hero because he really does hold it down when I have to do all this chamber stuff. But my villain gonna have to be the Academy. You know what? Angela Bassett may be my hero because her reaction was spot on. Don't
Angela Bassett
and happy if you're not in no good mood. She did exactly probably what I would have done. My face would have told it all. Like I am not happy at the moment. She was robbed. We all know she was robbed. So that would definitely be my villain.
I agree. That Academy, that look of Jamie Lee Curtis.
Right.
Yeah.
Jamie who? That's how she looked. Like for real.
Right.
Yeah.
Who you got, Justin?
So my hero, I got heroes. Angela Bassett, hero. She was amazing in Wakanda Forever. Also, Jonathan Majors and Michael B. Jordan, and they subtle, but not subtle to us, nod to her, and honestly, just some of the things that they've been doing on their press run. Some of these beautiful images of Black men loving each other, supporting each other. And I've seen some of their interviews, and I just. It's nice to see, two obviously very talented Black men, strong-willed, strong brothers, but also showing vulnerability, showing support, and not caring about the emasculation of our men, like that whole blah 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 narrative. Like, nah, like Black men deserve to be soft too, and rest and have peace and ease and support one another without calling into question. Who do they sleep with in their bedroom? Like, why is there a correlation every single time? So those are my heroes. I thought that was a great crescendo and really honoring her as well in their own little way. Especially as Michael B. Jordan, is a character in the latest film. And then my villain. My villain is I was going to go with the Academy, but I'm just going to switch it back to SVB because of what my weekend turned into because of what happened late last week. So I feel like somebody owed me a vacation and some drink credits at my favorite resort or something because I had to do things that I shouldn't have to do, which is come up with communication strategies and also figure out like what could be the impact on my portfolio, We had a few companies that were exposed, and I'm thankful for the Main Street bailout for sure, because we have companies that fall into that category of really great things, and if they're not able to operate and pay bills, how they may have been exposed as far as their employees, their customers, all the things. So villain is risky bankers that are acting like venture capitalists. That I would say that's my villain of the week.
Hey man, I'll meet you at the Billiard on Friday night.
Let's do it.
That's our local watering hole. So
I'm with it.
Yeah.
Y'all don't even let a brother know anymore. Y'all getting together and don't even include me. That's what's.
To be honest, it's been a long time. It's been like at least 6 months, Jeff? 6, 7 months. It's been a minute. Yeah.
Marlon, since you watching, man, you can come to the Billiard. Since Tasha made you her hero, she'll give you a night off. You can come drink with us at Billiard if you're not playing baseball.
I'm about to say,
it's gonna be Friday night.
Friday
when
night.
Y'all gonna
go be at the ball field.
Yeah. I'm like, I remember playing ball. He ain't coming.
Hey, he got a kid in baseball and a kid in softball. He gonna be at somebody ball field on Friday night.
Yeah, he ain't coming.
Yeah, because it ain't football season no more. So for me, man, I think I just got two heroes, man. My hero, hero number one is the Black Experience. I know it went viral earlier this week or this weekend about the softball girls.
Yeah.
I think it was at Grambling.
Grambling.
If you've been to a softball tournament or softball game, like chatter from the girls' dugouts is usual, but it's just something authentically us that we can take something that's everyday and regular and make it ours, right? And so, it was rhythmic, it was fun, it was our girls having a great time. So they are my first villain. My first hero. And my second hero is what Smartmatic and Dominion voting machine or voting companies are doing to Fox News right now. I think Smartmatic, they just got approved by the New York Supreme Court to sue Fox News for $2.6 billion, and Dominion is currently suing Fox News for $1.6 billion in defamation. So those are my two heroes for the week. Those probably will never go to court. They will settle out of court well before they get there. But the fact that they will have to pay close to $4 billion in damages just makes me happy. It makes my heart sing for all the bad they do to the country.
I love what Old Dominion is forcing Tucker Carlson to do, which is disclose all his deepest, darkest secrets of how he wasn't down with the cause. And they're like, no, let's get clear. Let's get crystal clear about where your positioning was in this defamation lawsuit. Do you or do you not believe that we were at issue? And it's like, oh no, fuck Trump. You know what I mean?
What I appreciate the most about all of these news drops is typically when you see big news drops like this, you always see them on Friday at 5, so that nobody's paying attention. Dominion dropping these joints on Wednesday at 2:30.
Dominion dropping them Tuesday afternoon at 1:15. They're like, oh, you on lunch? Go on and get this news.
Right.
Anyway,
get your tacos in this news all in one sitting.
Exactly. Trending topics, baby. Trending topics. Hey, who you got, Kerry?
All right, I got a few. First hero for me is Danielle, my wife. She got a promotion at work. She been working hard to get that promotion. Big ups to Danielle. She been kind of out here killing it. She is asleep right now because hour changes, but she gonna watch the recording, I'd like to think. And this way, she said, well, when you gonna shout me out? And I said, okay, I'm gonna shout you out this week. So she got the promotion. Big ups to her.
And she didn't even watch it.
She ain't even watch it, but we'll live with it. We'll take it. The next thing I want to shout out, I got to shout out myself. I'm my own hero this week. I'm working on a few things. And one of them that I can announce right now is I got into my PhD program. So your boy is about to start on that path. And hopefully in a few years here, I'll be Dr. Claymore. That's an ed policy researcher and expert in equity and equity and inclusion in higher ed. So big ups to me for that. I got to toot my own horn. I got some other stuff coming that we'll talk about later, but for right now, that's one thing that I want to put out there. Villains, I would say people that try to hold you back. We've talked about this before. People that
my internet went out.
Hold you back from the future. Those are the villains that I cannot support anymore, right? So if you're trying to hold people back from being their best selves, we have no business talking anymore. So that's where I'll leave that at. So that's it. Those are my two heroes villain for the week. What do you think?
That way it was I think Tasha internet dropped, but hey man, if it just Marlon, if you watching, tell Tasha we said thank you for joining the show. We'll have her back on. Justin, Fry, let me walk upstairs and check with the wife to make sure she ain't. There she go. Her Wi-Fi back on. We was just saying thank you.
Oh, we were just saying thank you.
Oh well, you're welcome.
I mean, you can say boom. I was just saying, tell her Marlon to tell her we said tell Tasha we said thank you. He in the comments saying yes.
My internet on that daylight savings time.
Man.
You got the nighttime minutes. You ain't got the nighttime minutes no more.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Hey man, but thank y'all both, man. Justin, Tasha, man, we appreciate y'all for the love, for the support. Y'all, like Carrie said in the open, man, y'all have been with us since the beginning as guests and as keeping the comment section popping all night. Keisha say we do need a podcast drink tonight because it's just good shit popping all the way through. So thank y'all so much, man.
Thank you.
And we out, man. Thank y'all again.
Peace out. Pleasure. Appreciate y'all thinking of me. Have a good one.
Have a good one.